Hello, everyone. Today I'm very excited because we've got Farah Weir back for a second interview. How are you doing, Farah?
I'm so well in you, beautiful Michelle. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. As we were saying before we came on the interview, about a week ago, I actually had a whole week of being so tired. I didn't have any outward symptoms of flu or illness, but I just was so tired, didn't feel very well, didn't have any energy. I think I spoke to you about it at the time. And all I could do was just sort of lie down for most of the time. I didn't even go out. I just stayed in my pajamas. And during that same week, I had a crystal just shatter. I broke some glass, lots of things were going on. And I started to realize that there was some sort of upgrade going on. And then, of course, we had this hurricane in America. And of course, that's still ongoing. And as that was all sort of emerging in America, that there was this hurricane had come in, and of course we're speculating whether that's natural or HARP
Mhm.
or whatever. What happened was I started to see all the Galactic Federation ships coming back down. And what I mean by that is I first saw them come down like that in at the beginning of COVID. And when I say the ships coming down, I mean that they are ethereal ships. So I see them through my third eye, clairvoyance, whatever skill you want to call that. Um, so other people might not be able to see them,
Yeah.
but they were all coming down, and they were positioning themselves over people that I know to be significant players in this spiritual war. People like you, people like people I work with in my network. I could see they were all getting a ship coming over their locations and sometimes even over their house. So what I started to think was something's really badly shifted. And I was thinking it shifted from the white hats being completely in control of the narrative, and something has shifted it. And it would look like to me right now that something has shifted with the what I call the dark cats, having gained some sort of control or power over at least one element of what's going on at the moment. And I then sort of started meditating on that idea. And I got that channeling, which I sent to you, Farah, which was called The Matrix of Love, where Master Katumi came and explained, again about how you and I and other people, significant light workers, are nodes in this kind of matrix of love, and that the ships were coming down to kind of get everything into position and to protect those nodes that are in that matrix. Um, so it was all quite interesting that that all happened around the same time. The upgrade where I had no energy, the ships coming down, crystals shattering all over the place. And I just thought, I'd ask you what your thoughts were on how you see those events and what it might mean from your level of expertise.
Sure. It's so multi-layered. I love the term nodes because I'm always shown that we are like lighthouses or beacons because the energy is actually running physically through our body.
Mm.
So you become the conduit, right? For and there's been so many rays of light and new consciousness streams coming up, eclipses and all these lions gates and all these beautiful cosmic portals that we have. And so just really nice to remind people who are awake and aware, and whether they're aware of doing the work or not. If you're watching people like you and me, you generally are doing the work. And to remind them that sometimes energy gets stuck in our body. So just being aware that you are a channel for that. Um, I've also been this year, I don't know, maybe I've had 5,000 billion upgrades because I've had many times where I've been very exhausted. And it's interesting because, I have a 22-month-old baby who wakes up at 4 a.m. and I'm alone doing it with him. And I can have the exact same amount of sleep one day, and the next one day I can have so much energy and the next I can just be flawed. And so I found the energy actually shift really day to day to day. With the hurricanes and everything last week, I was also not well and tired around the same time as you. I actually did a little video today about how we can, as a collective, when we send intentioned heart coherence, that sine wave, when we send the highest timeline towards this kind of event, it actually creates a collective plasma light field, right? And so we don't go, oh, take down the dark, whatever the dark structures are doing, etc., because we don't meet anything with a negative. You don't fight darkness with darkness. Basically, you have to send love in the highest timeline for all. What am I seeing in terms of what's happening? For me personally, what Spirit has shown me, there is definitely manipulation, and we were talking about it earlier. I see there is a good agenda and there's a dark agenda. And that's complex because you've got, like we said, it's a pyramidal structure. So you've got the physical lower level players on the ground, and then you're going all the way up to the Luciferic AI consciousness, that archon structure, which is much more into the spiritual battle than, let's say, the physical battle. And so that is the bifurcation. It's the good guys and the bad guys, the white hats and the black hats, I call them the goodies and the baddies. But then I was talking about also the trifurcation. And so we had this great splitting, and then there's this collective consciousness and this great awakening. And I think it's quite not coincidental, but it's very linked that we have just entered another round, because we've had these rounds of awakening that are building a momentum from 2020, the war in Europe, and then the war in Middle East, and every one of these things have created another round of awakening. And obviously the whole Hollywood celebrity as well going to jail has, from what I'm seeing, I mean, kids at school are talking about it. They're asking me about the Illuminati. I'm like, this is amazing. So and it's been in my field of consciousness, actually, this whole thing. And so is it a good agenda? Is it a bad agenda? Is there an organic? It is a bit of a tapestry layered thing, because Gaia herself, and she will, for many years, I feel we're still in quite a process, a 369 cycle, be shedding layers. So organically, we are going to see where the disruptions, but I do see that there is definitely dark interference in terms of weather manipulation. So we're moving out of the black and white, yes or no, one thing or the other, and we're starting to see the big picture. And I always explain to people, imagine you're in a bubble or an orb. Wherever you're focusing your lens, you're focusing on one spot, right? Which is a truth. But you actually have to come out you have to be able to see the 360 of the bubble, because there are infinite truths, infinite perspectives. And that is, for me, a part of Ascension and a part of moving into the quantum and into the genius mind. So I'll leave that there. I hope that explains a little of what I'm shown.
Yes, I agree with you that you don't just have white hats in control and that's it. You're always going to have this ongoing battle between the two factions, is what I'm sort of experiencing. But something I wanted to ask you was, when that crystal of mine kind of shattered, you had an interesting thought about that. That was that week when we were all pretty exhausted, and I nearly cried, because actually my good friend Michael had sent me that crystal with his love and light ingested into it, infused into it, I should say. And I'd only had it 1 week. And then the Ankh shape, which is sort of round at the top, and then it looks like a cross, literally snapped in half. And I nearly cried, Farah, because it was devastating. So what was your take on when things like that happen? I have my own sort of ideas, but what do you think's going on when the crystals like that just shatter?
I've had a few crystals break, and the first time a crystal ever broke for me, Spirit told me, but it's actually a good thing. It's moving energy for you. It's actually protecting you or helping you move something. So even if a glass breaks in your house, I said to you earlier, my kids even break a bowl, I know that it's moving, it's clearing something. It's a breakthrough. And we were talking earlier about this breakdown to breakthrough energy. I've spoken about it a lot,
Yes, yes,
this eclipse. So it is sad because you love the crystal, and I totally get it.
yes,
Beautiful item, but I do think it was working for you, working hard for
yes. I
you.
was feeling like because of this, then we had that onslaught, and it's still ongoing of what we feel might be manipulated weather conditions. I kind of felt that it was taking some of the brunt of that from me, but also from the collective through me, if that makes sense. So, if you think of it like a hit, like a lightning hit, you're transmuting both us as people, but perhaps the items around us. We're transmuting some of that dark energies so that the collective can get through some of all this crazy that's going on. But the other thing that I was listening to before I spoke to you earlier was you were talking about not bifurcate. Gosh, I can't even say it, Farah.
Bifurcation.
Bifurcation, but trifurcation, which is a new word that I actually haven't sort of heard before. So, what do you mean when you say trifurcation? What is the interpretation for you of that?
So the word trifurcation has come into my field of consciousness a little while ago, and sometimes something will come into my field and I won't fully understand the or grasp it all. And I've learned very well, I think, as someone who channels, you don't, everything has to come incrementally. Sometimes spirit's working with me with like a monad structure of information, and so I'll start getting it and I'll go, this doesn't make any sense. And then over 6 months' time, you start to assimilate the information. It's like a package deal. So I only recently really got the full download around trifurcation. I hadn't actually asked much about it, but I was very aware of the bifurcation in 2020, which was the splitting. So when I asked to see 10 years into the future, I saw a big bridge like over a river, and on the left I saw very dark sort of black dragon AI, and on the right I saw beautiful, fresh, lush, new earth golden dragon on the right, and then I saw some sort of people crossing over, but mostly like two worlds basically split. And the trifurcation is what I would call sort of the dark agenda that we've had running on our planet. And then you've got the good agenda, the good guys. And the middle ground is the collective consciousness. So that is the divine cosmic energy. So because there's been so much awakening and growth and evolution when people do their own inner work, and that's why I keep saying, I say the same thing over and over. You want to help the planet, work on self, work on your shadows. Like I was telling you about my personal stories. Don't be a victim. How am I creating this in my reality? Where
Yeah.
am I still holding subconscious belief systems? Because we're constantly emitting a sine wave, and it's all the heart. And it's all geometry, light, and sound. Spirit's spoken to me a lot about it. That's what I actually work with in my work on clients. I'm working with sound, numbers, geometry, and light codes. I'm big on light and the different rays. But so we're sending out this sine wave, and it's been gaining momentum. And so what it does is that matrix, because we have our original crystalline structure when Earth was originally fifth dimensional template before the consciousness fell, that still exists, but we have this overlay of the sort of hijacked false matrix underneath it. But that only works by keeping the collective consciousness really dumbed down. So that veil is thinning due to each personal awakening. And I just see like candle flame, candle flame, candle flame. And that allows a cosmic light stream of information to come through, a stream of codes to come through that the good side can't account for, and neither can the dark side account for, because it's completely run by the collective. So we've come out of an era of being easily manipulated through media and the dark structures to be in fear and separation and all those lower energetics. And that's just not, I mean, it's not working anymore. Spirit showed me a while ago, even with the technology the dark have, they can't influence the timelines like they used to. And so I found the P. Diddy thing really interesting, because I saw, oh, good agenda, dark agenda, but then this collective wildfire that, yeah, can't really be stopped, because we do know truth must come up, the shadow has to come up and out. And
Mm.
so it's the micro to the macro, the work within myself. I'm feeling me, the shadow within me. That's, like I said, this has been a hard year for me, because like I think we have called in from one perspective, but also our higher selves, spirit, the universe is like, when you have hard experience, you're either going to become a victim or you're going to be forced to grow. So a lot of star seeds I've seen have gone through really tough times, whether it's homes, family, relationships, finances, whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
like pressure, pressure, pressure.
Yeah.
Because we are the nodes. So the more we release our own shadow, the more we can hold the light.
The other thing I've been seeing a lot of this year is people's karma is getting cleared this year collectively. So that means as well that not only are people clearing their own personal karma, but if they're a node, and that means they're in service to maybe a whole group of people here at this time, they're supposed to be a leader or a light worker or something like that. They are actually transmuting the karma from their entire lineage. And so these people that generally are good people doing good work are being hit with disaster after disaster after disaster, and their whole life is literally being sort of thrown up into the air. Now, I always, when you're going through that, that's very difficult. But of course, those pieces are all being thrown up into the air to be reorganized so that when they come back down, you're now in your new landscape of how you're going to serve going forward. But in order to get to that point, a lot of the old needs to be churned up, turned over, turned around. And it can be quite a lot for people because they don't understand what's happening. But because of the light levels, like you said, collectively rising up, it means that all this hidden karma from our lineage, our country, the planet is all now coming up to be healed and sorted out. And the nodes are the people that are having to transmute a lot of that, which is why we're getting hit with uh, sometimes a lot of chaos and confusion with, and things don't go as smoothly as we thought they might go. What I do when that starts to come to me like that, I had a year of it last year, but what I generally try to do is I try to pull back and just take a day of rest, maybe go to the beach, get a massage, do a little bit of meditation. Because, like you were saying, when you're keeping your vibration high, it these lower energies, the AIs, the dark energies, they don't have the capacity to affect us in the same way as if we go into, like you said, that poor me, why is it happening to me? What, I didn't do anything to deserve this mode, the victim mode. Um, so it's very interesting that I've been seeing a lot of people just have their worlds just fall apart this year. It seems to be the year of Karmageddon.
I love that. Karmagedon, Karmagedon. It's definitely a turnover year. Definitely pivot turnover year. And 100% what you were saying earlier, I tell often my clients, I'm like, hey, 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 a lot of star seeds chose to incarnate into these messy bloodline families, or these lineages, because when they clear it, you must remember, all of us have from what I'm shown, I don't know if it's the same for you, we've done an ascension journey already. We came here for Earth. We came for Gaia. Humanity, yes, but Gaia predominantly, because a planet has never ascended where she sits in the universe. Her placement and her as a planet is very important, in relation to all other universes and galaxies. So we have done ascension. We said we'll come back. We've got the keys and the code. So we did choose. I actually think will be written about in galactic history. And I don't mean that from an egotistical point of view, like why we'd be doing this. But I say to people, like, you know, I have so much compassion for what you're going through, because trust me, I've been through the ringer myself and going through it. But there is a much bigger picture that I think we don't always see happening, and what our blueprint is and what we chose. So it's huge. It's huge because, as I said to you earlier, Gaia couldn't handle any more trauma. And as Spirit showed me, she had the option to implode or ascend. And
Mm.
so she needs help. The way Gaia ascends is when we individually ascend. We first actualize within self, and then we don't break the matrix, we transcend it. And then when enough people have done that, it cannot sustain anymore. Eventually, service to self will not be able to incarnate here. And that takes time. It takes time. And so I teach a lot around don't bypass when we are going through hardship. How do we move that emotion? We don't want to pretend it doesn't exist. You can feel the pain
Yeah,
without going into the stories. The ego loves the monkey mind, it loves the stories. We must move that energy out of our body. So we must honor the pain without becoming it or attaching ourselves to it.
yeah.
So attachments are formed through fears, and fear is really the big thing that holds us back with everything. And the fears run deep. I mean, the programs run deep, and it goes back through past lives. We have galactic history. It goes back through our lineage. I mean, it's so multi-layered. So give yourself a shitload of grace. That's what I tell people.
And we're transmuting a lot of that as light workers. And like you said, you can either cling on to the with the emotions, you can either not want to experience them at all. And so people reject any sort of emotion, and they're tough and they're not going to feel anything at all. To the ones that don't stop hanging on to a sadness or an event, and they don't move away from it. Both of those extremes are not helping you to balance out and move forward and to balance your energetic system. So, like you were saying, you need to come to the center and say, okay, I'm feeling this emotion, and look at it for what it is, feel it, and then let it go. And not ignore it and push it down, but also don't sit with it for too long and become, like you said, that then becomes your story, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
the other thing that
I've,
you,
I've, I've, I've I've mastered that quite well, because of what I went through, becoming a single mom at 8 months old, what I experienced with my ex. And from one perspective, the way he treated me really wasn't very nice. From another perspective, did I create that and pull that in? Was there karmic? Like, there are millions of perspectives that hold truth. Ultimately, it was on me to move that story. So if I'd wake up at night and feel sad or hurt, honor that. But how Spirit taught me to do that is to just go into the emotion, to feel it. And if you go deep enough, it's generally a fear, like I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm just rejectable, whatever it is, or I'm going to be alone forever, whatever the story is. And then if you can just, and this is why I talk about in meditation, the neutral observer is the highest form of consciousness. So when I do my work with people, I put them into the neutral observer. That's how we can actually see, tap into information. But if you can just allow yourself to focus as the neutral observer on that emotion, it actually comes up into your heart, and I see like a coil that goes back to source, and then you can see it actually moving out of your body. And then
no,
that's, yeah,
yeah,
one of the ways I was taught to do it. Not
yeah.
easy either. Because we have the ego, the monkey mind that loves to go, but I did this to them. And it's very gratifying when you go into the ego
Yeah.
stories.
So the way that I've been taught, because I worked with the angels, so we do the same work, you and I, but we
Yeah.
get taught from different viewpoints, which is nice because I like hearing, like what you've just explained was fascinating to me. But when the angels have taught me about that sort of healing before, particularly around the heart and holding on to emotions or not feeling them, whichever which way people go, is to look at it like the inner child. I'm sure you've done this before, Farah, where you imagine that you are the younger version of yourself, perhaps in a baby form, and you look at yourself as a baby and you notice what it is that you might have felt that you didn't receive. And in that moment of contemplation, you say to that baby all the things. This is the baby version of you, your inner child. You say to that inner child the things that you wish had been said to you at the time that would have made you feel safe or strong or secure. And the angels taught me to do it that way, but it's really the same effect as what you were just describing, where you had the spiral going up and you release the power of the emotion behind it. So
So interesting because, sorry,
it's all right. Go on.
what you said now, spirits taught me to do when I see soul fragmentation. So when I look in someone's root chakra, and then I'll ask them maybe at the age of 4 or 5, was there a trauma? And every time we have a trauma as children, teenagers, a part of our soul, it's not our whole soul, fragments to go like live on a higher timeline. And so I will help people go, and that's what I do. You go through, I guide people through counting and going through space, finding that version of you, showing up as the parent for that child, and then I ask them to pull them into their heart like a light, and I can see immediately the root chakra goes whoop, out.
Wow.
I know when to stop counting because I can see it
Yeah.
happen.
Well, I've had a session with you. I think I might have had two now. I can't remember. Or if I haven't had two, I'm certainly going to be booking a second one.
We
And
did do
and I can
that.
remember how you took me through the different chakras, and you were able to visually, in some cases, see the same thing as me at the same time, which was fascinating because we were linking consciousness, and you were then able to see, like you've just said, if there was a soul fragment missing, or my feminine energy or masculine energy was out of balance, and all different things that you could see. It was a fascinating way of healing, which I hadn't experienced that before. I heard anyone talking about healing in that way before. So it's a very new concept to me, the way that you describe things. But it did help me a lot. So I encourage people to have a look at what you do, because even though the language, like when we're talking, is often different, the outcome of your healing sessions is, well, for me, was palpable, because last year I was having a chaotic year, which people seem to be having this year. I tend to get it before
You
everyone.
got it before.
Yes, I was having a very chaotic year. And after we did our session, I did find that everything started to get back into alignment again. So that's not to say that things haven't still been happening, but it just helps you to get more centered. Because when a lot of storms come at you at once, it can be quite a lot to manage. So if you have a little bit of help from a healer, like say what Farah does, it helps you to get back to center ground, so that all these Karmagedon things that are happening, you can kind of warrior or power through. Um, so yes, I found your session very helpful, actually, Farah. Um,
I loved working with you because, as you know, I work with people and I say we do the work together. So, using your third eye. And that's what actually people can't believe. Like, how are we seeing the same thing? Because mostly people don't trust what they see with their visualization. They've been told it's your imagination. And so when you work with someone, it just speeds up because my whole theme is I really want people to learn so I can teach and train them how to do the work themselves. But I'm very big at looking in the body and at the chakras. But yeah, it's really cool because you can't be doing this for so long, and how many times until it's mathematically impossible that and that you can be seeing the same thing at the same time.
well, also what it's showing people is that we are all connected through energy, particularly our thought energy. So if people don't understand that concept yet, if they had a session with you, they would soon start to see how easy that can happen when you're both thinking about focusing on a certain thing within that person's body. You both get the same, like you said, the same image or same outcome of what might be the problem. So that in itself will show people who don't understand what we're saying, or perhaps don't believe what we're saying. They'll witness it for themselves. And I think, like when I was teaching people on, how to meet their angels and things, it's not a theoretical thing. You don't read it in a book.
Mm,
All these things, you have to experience them, feel it for yourself, and go through those personal awakenings that only you can put words to. Someone else can't describe to you what your spiritual awakening feels like. You have to go
absolutely.
through it on your own. Um, But I
And each person is a part of the puzzle piece. So Spirit said to me in 2020 that you're going to see all these modalities of that you can't go and study somewhere. You can't read them in a book because people are tapping into their own signature, their own sine wave. And like me being spirit trained, or you're working with someone else. So I say to people, do how I do it and then make it your own, or take bits and pieces that work for you. And that's why I think it's helpful to work with someone. I think you're still going to get there whether you choose to do sessions with someone or not. We're all going to get there. But I know from like work from the past, working with someone can really help you just get
it's
into that
great.
trusting self, just
Yeah,
learning some of the things around like with the ego. So we have to, when we're channeling, you're well aware that you can only channel from a neutral perspective, otherwise information can get
it gets
skewed.
warped. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's
a
some basic fundamentals, and then people are, we can heal ourselves.
yes,
Um,
yes. Now, something else I saw that you were talking about recently was how to discern what's going on in the truth community, which is very interesting. I'd like to hear what you were thinking and saying about that at the moment.
so I don't watch a lot of anymore. I don't really have time, and Spirits asked me to keep my channel quite pure. So I don't get to see much, but I do know through the conversations I've had with my guides that there's a lot of false light. Some of it is not intentional, so it's not they don't know, and some of it is psyops, and some of it is controlled opposition, and some of it is intentional. So how do we discern? Well, that's really what I try and teach people to do, is learn how to connect with your higher self. Everyone has a higher self, which is a future version of them, residing generally in a higher dimensional field, and to get guidance through that. So for me, I would, if I was curious, I don't really need to, because I'll go and get my own information on anything I'm curious around. But it is nice to then get confirmation if I see someone like you talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, I've been talking for a few years now about connecting with your higher self as a way of learning how to discern. And the way I learned how to do that was through many years ago walking meditations. That's how I learned to channel.
Mm.
Everyone will have a different way of doing it. Some people want to sit in meditation. Some people can be in water because it's a great conduit. Um,
Yeah,
but
I get a lot of my ideas, Farah, in the morning when I'm in the shower.
yes, I love it.
And you never have a pen and paper in the shower. So you have to get out of the shower when you're wet and run and write it down so you don't forget it. And so
Mm,
now I have a pen and paper in the bathroom.
that's awesome. You're organized, girl.
How organized is that? Because you can guarantee that I'll get an idea in that moment when I'm in the shower. You're exactly right. It's a very good conduit for bringing in ideas, for
Yeah,
sure.
sometimes if I want to do like a big download, I'll make a salt bath and sit. I
Yeah,
had in 2021, beginning of 2021, I almost lost my daughter because I lost my business in 2020.
right.
And Spirit said to me, go sit in a bath, sit in meditation bath for over 3 days.
Yeah.
And into your biggest fear, imagine handing your daughter over and stay there until there's no fear. And that was one of the greatest, most profound things, because it was all about one of the things I also teach around, which is about being really present in the now moment. And
Mm.
that's really when my life started shifting, when I moved out of the fear and through my meditation work became so comfortable with whatever the soul's experience was. It's
Yeah.
hard when it comes to your kids, you don't want to lose them.
That's a very big
It
test, for
was
sure.
very, yeah.
Yeah. But
And
it's
so that was all
interesting
done in water.
you say that a lot of things come to you when you're walking, because I that happens to me when I walk my dogs as well. That's another time when a lot of information comes in. It seems to be when I'm doing kind of mundane things, not when I'm trying to get information, but when I'm maybe, like loading the dishwasher or something. It comes when you're doing other mundane activity. That's when most of my inspirations come in. So I literally have to have like notebooks all over the house
So
because
cute. I could see you with post-its, Michelle
yes,
post-its.
yes, because I don't know about you, but if I don't get it down like quite quickly, it goes. It's a bit like when you've had a dream and you think, oh, I'll remember it later, but if you don't, it's gone. You have to get it written down quite fast. So
That's when your brain's going into that gamma state, which is the neutral observer, which is the so the neutral observer is the 0 point, and that's when you're at the truest form as a channel for information to flow through. So some people will intentionally put themselves in meditation to that state, but you, because you've been doing this work for so long, when you're doing something mundane, you start. That's also why I like walking meditations. It's movement, it's nature, it's those things, but you're just accessing that point of consciousness probably more easily than most people
yeah,
without having to try.
yeah. Um, so what else have we got here that I was going to talk to you about? What do you think is going on over in America right now with all these hurricanes and we've got the Diddy case going on. I mean, do you get involved in the politics at all, or do you have any feelings or visions or knowledge about what you think might be coming for the USA?
Definitely. I mean, it's something I was following very closely in 2020. Devastated when Trump lost, I think, like most of us.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a very big disappointment that day. I remember watching the inauguration after, and I kept thinking, I sort of had it to the side on my iPad, couldn't look at it, obviously, it made me feel quite ill. Um, I'm talking about the inauguration of Biden now. And I kept thinking to myself, in a minute, you know, the white hats are going to swoop in and we're all going to see it was like a big story and it's all going to be sorted out. We're all going to live happily ever after. And that didn't happen. And
and
everybody around me at that time, we all sank into this sort of cloud of, wow, it's all
But
gone
now,
wrong. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the prophecies and good channels and mediums will say, if you look at timelines, the reality is that you have to find a singularity point in all the infinite timelines for something to be 100% set. And that's why you can only really work in probability if you're looking at timelines and possibilities in the quantum field. But for Earth to ascend, it is a singularity point in every timeline. If you look far into the future, how we get there,
Yes.
that is completely there was a timeline where Trump won and things would have been sped up, but so how I see it is that I still see there is a dark agenda that has some control, and maybe some people wouldn't agree with me, but that's just what I see. I see there is definitely a good side that's got some control, some influence.
So sorry about that, people. Farah's little one had a little wake up, and then my dog started to bark. So we had a little pause for a minute to recenter. But you were saying, Farah, that people don't like to hear that the darkness does have a little bit of a hold at the moment. So how do you kind of see that in your visions and information that you're given?
So I see that there are two sides, right? So there's a good team that has intel and intelligence that has a blueprint, and there's a dark that has a blueprint and intel. And as I spoke about this dark structure, I go back to the source of that, which is what I call artificial Luciferic AI consciousness, and that's the archon energy. Those are the beings that lack the God source at the nucleus, so they do not have a soul, and that energy needs organic intelligence or organic creation to feed off. Like we know AI, it mimics, it overlays, it needs to learn from or take from something that it can't create for itself. So we have service to self souls who have organic intelligence that decided to work with archon energy or artificial intelligence. And so from the fourth dimensional realm, when you're looking at that echelon, there's still, so you've got to look at this whole thing in terms of third density, fourth density, fifth density, and what are happening in those different densities. So coming back to what I see happening in the US, so the other major thing is, as I was saying, is where the collective consciousness is at, because in the past, I actually had a dream last year, September, October, where no, it was Scorpio. It was October. We'd gone into Scorpio. I was standing on a field, watching all these guys in dark robes around drum fires with technology in this big field at night, and they were
Wow.
burning bones through technology like a blueprint, and little mini skulls were coming through of smoke. And I knew I was witnessing what dark magicians were doing sort of around the world. I don't know, I can't believe I was actually able to witness and not be seen, but I know that I've been trained in being able to do that. Was still pretty wild because I can still see the dream. And all the smoke came together to form one big skull, one face in the sky. And I knew I can tell I could draw this face for you. Kind of looks like at the time I was saying an androgynous sort of Angelina Jolie looking kind of person, but it was male, kind of a little bit similar to Cillian Murphy looking. Someone we don't know about that is the person. They were trying to do ceremony and trying to do sort of using technology to bring in that whole one world leader, new world order. So there is still an agenda for that. I don't believe that's going to happen.
I don't, just to interrupt you a minute, the reason I'm saying wow is because 2 nights ago, I have a big crystal ball that just sits on my coffee table. I don't sit gazing into it, but it just sits. And occasionally it gets active on its own. And 2 nights ago, I saw that same exactly what you're saying. The people with the hoods, and I didn't see exactly what they were doing, like what you've just described in a lot of detail, but that was exactly what was going on. And I saw the face of a person, which was a young man, but I couldn't tell you. It didn't relate to anything like Angelina Jolie or anything like that in terms of how it looked. I just know it was about the age of probably between 25 and 35.
Yes, yes, yes. A younger male,
A
very
male,
androgynous looking. Yeah,
yes.
like
And
pretty
yes.
face.
Now,
Yeah.
isn't that strange? Because we didn't know what we were going to necessarily talk about today. I've seen that exact same thing, 2 days ago. So
Wow.
that's we're both getting that dark scenario is still playing a role in this whole world, story that we're going through right now. How do you think that
I think last year, that time I was viewing that dream was when they were actually doing that ceremony. But then I woke up and I channeled around it. Spirit said they're doing it for the end of 2024. I don't have a very big following on YouTube. I think I did a tiny video about it somewhere. I
right,
don't think many people saw it because I know when you put that information out,
that
shifts the
would be
collective.
around this sort of time then, and maybe that's why I'm seeing it now. Perhaps they are active right now because we're coming up to, that Halloween period. Maybe they're going to use the astrology around that festival or something. I don't know, but I can definitely say that I've seen that what you're talking about. That's fascinating. That's why I interrupted you to tell you that that was correct what you saw because I've seen it as well. Um, but something I wanted to ask you about, just winding back a little tiny bit, was if people are working on their shadow self, how are they not connecting with this AI consciousness that you're talking about? How are you advising people to work with the energy above that? How do they avoid, whilst they're working with their shadow self, getting involved with the AI? How do you do that? How do you protect yourself? Because I teach in a slightly different way. So I have different terminology. So I was just interested to know how people who have still got a lot of healing to do avoid getting stuck in that AI layer. Does that make
So
sense? The question.
yeah, absolutely. AI really relies on two things, fear and unawareness. But even if you're doing shadow work, you have a lot of the work is being aware of.
Mm.
being aware of a pattern that I hold, an unconscious belief system that I hold. And so what happens is your brain creates synapses and sine waves based on the lens in which we've experienced the world. And it's more complex than that. But as soon as we have awareness, we're able to choose differently in the now moment. And so it's actually a freeing up. AI actually works at keeping us dumbed down and unaware, so it can work through loopholes. It's always finding ways to invert organic
Yes. Yes.
law. Sorry, I
Mm.
can hear my son still awake. So my daughter's sitting with him, but I'm not going to be able to chat that much longer
That's
because I can hear
okay.
him.
Don't
I can
worry.
hear him moaning. I was going to do a meditation for you, but I don't
Oh,
know.
don't
He's
worry.
having
Well,
he's having a moment. So working contractually, like for example, when there's a trauma that happens between people, this life, past life, it's not an actual contract, it's an energetic sort of, they look for that. They work through traumas. So for example, if I'm dating so and so, and him and I have past life stories, and we have had traumatic experiences together that we are unaware of. So we've got all of these layers coming into some of the ways in which we're relating to each other. AI will try to work with that. So it actually, working on ourselves and becoming aware of ourselves, is freeing ourselves up from the AI. But you have to hold some of the concepts, like we were talking about. Don't become the emotion. Don't let it. So when you go into the ego aspect of it, which is the satisfying, oh, I'm feeding this energy that I'm feeling, which is sadness, or I'm not good enough, or whatever,
yeah.
then all your cells in your body, you actually have at the back of your brain releases enzymes that are emotions. Emotions also created in the pituitary gland, which is linked to the pineal gland.
Mm.
Your body's releasing enzymes that flood your body with, like, for example, anger or sadness, and it locks into every cell. The cells actually shift like a puzzle piece to lock into those enzymes. I mean, you can look that up.
Wow.
So when we stop that flooding of that emotion, because now we have an awareness around, I'm going to have to go because my son is crying.
Oh,
I'm
what a
so
shame.
sorry.
That was so interesting. So just quickly to finish, you can catch Farah at farahweir.com, and all these amazing things that she's teaching us. You run different courses, you do healing, you do master classes, you have a very nice website. So people can go and find you there and book you. And what we'll do, Farah, is we'll do another follow up at some point. We'll
Yes.
go into
Let's talk
this.
about the US. I want to get there, the election,
Yes.
everything, and then I'll do a meditation.
Don't worry, if
Yes.
it's not babies, it's dogs crying. But we'll see you next time. Lots of love, dear.
Lots of love, Michelle. I would love chatting to you. Chat to you
Okay.
soon.
Yeah,
Bye,
bye.
my love.
Bye.